I work maintenance for the St. Louis County School District. 3 middle schools and a high school on the rotation. Mostly I'm fixing boilers that sound like they're dying, patching drywall some kid put a dent in, replacing ceiling tiles stained brown from leaks nobody reported until March. It's steady. Union. Benefits I can actually use now that I'm not on Gloria's plan anymore. The divorce went through last April, 11 months ago. We'd been separated for a year before that, so it wasn't a surprise or anything. Just paperwork. Gloria kept the house in West Duluth, the one near the elementary school Gabriel goes to. I got weekends twice a month if I gave her 2 weeks' notice and stayed current on support, which I do. Haven't missed one yet. The thing is, Gabriel's 10 now. He remembers the bad stretch. He remembers me coming home at 2 in the morning smelling like Schmitz and cigarettes I bummed off whoever. He remembers the fights. He remembers Gloria's voice going flat and cold the way it did right before she'd tell me to sleep on the couch. So now when I get him for a weekend, I can see him watching me, checking, waiting to see if I'm going to mess it up again. I don't drink anymore. 11 months sober as of last week. But telling a 10-year-old that doesn't mean much when you've already broken the promise twice before. So, I just try to show him. Planned activities, structured time, stuff we can do together that doesn't involve me zoning out in front of the TV with a case of Grain Belt. For this visit, I booked a cabin up on Lake Vermilion, near Tower, about an hour and a half north. I'd been looking at Vrbo listings for a couple weeks, trying to find something that looked decent but wasn't going to cost me $400 a night. I settled on a place called Lakeview Rest, stupid name. But it was $120 a night, had 2 bedrooms, and the photos looked clean. Knotty pine walls, a little kitchen, a dock. I figured we could fish. Maybe rent a canoe. Just be outside and away from everything. I promised myself I'd stay focused. No distractions. No checking my phone every 10 minutes. No letting my brain wander off into the same spiral it always does when I'm alone with my thoughts too long. Just me and Gabriel, and 2 days of being the kind of dad he deserves. That was the plan, anyway. Friday afternoon, I met Alyssa at the Holiday Station on the north edge of Duluth, right before the highway splits off toward Two Harbors. It's this big gas station with a subway inside and a parking lot that's always got semis idling in the corner. We'd agreed on 3 o'clock. I got there at 2:55 and sat in my truck with the engine running, watching the entrance. Alyssa pulled up at 2:58 in her gray Subaru. Passenger door opened and Gabriel climbed out with his backpack and a puffy blue winter coat that looked too big on him. He's skinny. Gets that from Gloria's side. Sandy brown hair that needed a cut. Green eyes, freckles across his nose. He saw my truck and waved. Not excited, just acknowledging. I got out and met them halfway across the lot. Cold enough that my breath came out in clouds. February in Minnesota. 30 degrees probably. The kind of cold that's not dramatic, just constant. "Hey, bud," I said. "Hey," Gabriel said. Alyssa handed me a plastic Target bag. Extra clothes, his inhaler's in the front pocket. He's supposed to use it before bed if he's been running around. "Got it. There's sandwich stuff in there too. I didn't know what you'd packed." "I've got food," I said. Which was true. I'd stopped at Super One yesterday and bought hot dogs, buns, chips, a box of mac and cheese, and a gallon of milk. Breakfast stuff too. Eggs and bread. Alyssa looked at me. She's 2 years younger than me, but she's got this way of staring that makes me feel like I'm 16 again and she's catching me in a lie. Dark brown hair pulled back tight, sharp chin, brown eyes that don't blink much. "You good?" she said. "Yeah. You look tired." "I'm fine." She waited. I didn't say anything else. "Stevie," she said, "stay present, okay? That's all Gloria's asking. Just be there with him. I know. No phone. No zoning out. He needs to know you're paying attention." "I know," I said again. Tried to keep my voice even. Alyssa means well, but she's got this habit of turning everything into a checklist, and it gets under my skin sometimes. "We're good. It's going to be fine. She looked at Gabriel. You call me if you need anything, okay? Gabriel nodded. She hugged him, got back in her Subaru, and drove off without another word. That's Alyssa. She doesn't do long goodbyes. I looked down at Gabriel. Ready? Yeah, he said. We got in the truck. The drive north was quiet for the first 20 minutes. Gabriel sat in the passenger seat with his backpack between his feet, looking out the window at the trees, pines and birch, all of them bare except for the evergreens, snow on the ground in patches where the sun didn't hit. The highway up this way is 2 lanes and it curves a lot following the ridgeline above the lake. I turned the radio on, some classic rock station. Bob Seger. Gabriel didn't say anything, so I left it. You excited? I said after a while. He shrugged. I guess. We can fish tomorrow if the ice is solid enough, or just walk around. There's supposed to be trails. Okay. You ever been to Vermilion? I don't think so. It's pretty. Lots of islands. Used to come up here when I was a kid with Grandpa Sutton. He had a buddy with a place near Sudan. Gabriel nodded. He was still looking out the window. I wanted to ask him how school was, how his friends were, if he was still into that card game he'd been obsessed with last time I saw him. But I didn't want to sound like I was trying too hard, so I just drove. We got to Tower around 4:30. The sun was already low, that flat orange light you get in winter when everything looks washed out. I followed the GPS down a county road that turned into gravel, then pulled off onto dirt driveway marked with a wooden sign that said, Lakeview Rest, in faded green letters. The cabin sat about 50 yards back from the road, tucked into a clearing surrounded by pines. Single story, dark brown siding, a small covered porch with 2 plastic Adirondack chairs. There was a newer-looking Silverado parked near the side, navy blue, and I figured that belonged to whoever managed the place. I parked next to it and killed the engine. This is it? Gabriel said. Yep. He looked at it. Didn't say if he liked it or not. We got out. I grabbed our bags from the back, my duffel in his backpack and the Target bag from Alyssa. The air smelled like wood smoke and cold water. I could see the lake through the trees behind the cabin, flat and gray. The front door opened before I reached it. A woman stepped out onto the porch, 60 maybe older. Short and heavy, wearing a tan Carhartt jacket and jeans tucked into sorrel boots, gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. She had a face that looked like it didn't smile much. Sutton? She said. Yeah, Stevie. She nodded. Linda Skinner. I run the property. Nice to meet you. She looked at Gabriel. This your boy? Yeah, Gabriel. Hey, Gabriel said quietly. Linda didn't respond to him, just looked back at me. You're in till Sunday, yeah? That's right. Checkout's at 11, not noon. 11. Got it. She pulled a key out of her jacket pocket. Actual metal key on a wooden keychain shaped like a fish. Propane heat. Thermostat's in the main room, but don't crank it past 70 or the tank will run dry. I'm not refilling it till Monday. Okay. Water heater's small. You get maybe 1 good shower before it needs to recover. Don't run the dishwasher and the shower at the same time or you'll trip the breaker. I nodded. There's a binder inside. House rules. Read it. Will do. She handed me the key. Her fingers were dry and cold when they brushed mine. I'm in the blue house half a mile up the road if something breaks. Don't call after 9 unless it's an emergency. Sure. She walked past us to the Silverado, got in, and drove off without saying goodbye. Gabriel looked up at me. She was weird. Yeah, I said. Little bit. Inside the cabin was exactly what the photos promised. Small front room with a couch and a wood stove, little kitchen off to the left with a 2-burner stove and a fridge that hummed loud. 2 bedrooms in the back, both with double beds and quilts that looked handmade. Knotty pine walls. Everything smelled like old smoke and pine sol. I set the bags down and turned the thermostat to 68. The propane heater kicked on with a low whoosh. "You want the bigger room?" I said to Gabriel. He shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Take the one on the right. It's got the window facing the lake." He nodded and took his backpack down the hall. I walked into the kitchen and saw the binder right away. It was sitting on the counter next to the microwave, a black 3-ring binder with a laminated page on top. The label on the spine said, "House Info in marker." I opened it. The first page was the rules, printed on white paper, laminated so it wouldn't get messed up. The title at the top said, "Lakeview Rest, Guest Guidelines" in bold all caps. I skimmed it. Standard stuff at first. No smoking indoors, no parties, quiet hours after 10, replace firewood if you use it. Then I got to the section below that and the formatting changed. Different font, bolder. Lake and property boundaries. No access to shoreline after sunset. Path gates lock automatically at dusk. No swimming past the first buoy line, approx 50 yards from dock. Depth increases rapidly beyond this point. West Cove is off limits at all times, marked with orange buoys. No fishing, swimming, or boating in this area. Do not approach the red boathouse on the north point. Structure is unsafe and legally posted. If you hear someone call your name from the water, do not respond and return to the cabin immediately. Report incident to property manager. I read that last one again. If you hear someone call your name from the water, do not respond and return to the cabin immediately. I stood there for a second, holding the binder. Gabriel came back into the kitchen. "What's that?" "House rules," I said. Close the binder. "Just the normal stuff. Don't trash the place. Don't be loud." "Can we go down to the lake?" I glanced at the window. Still light out, but not for long. Maybe 30 minutes before the sun dropped completely. "Yeah," I said, "for a few minutes." He headed for the door. I looked back at the binder. The thing was, it didn't read like a joke. It didn't have that tone. No little smiley face or disclaimer about locals messing with tourists. It was just instructions. Specific ones. The kind you write when you need people to follow them exactly. I thought about Linda's face. The way she'd said, "Read it." Probably just liability stuff. Covering her ass in case some drunk renter went swimming in February and drowned. That made sense. Put it in writing so nobody could sue. But the name thing, that was weird. I pulled the laminated page out of the binder and looked at it again. Thought about leaving it on the counter. Thought about stuffing it back in and forgetting it. Then I thought about what Gloria would say if something happened and I hadn't followed the rules. If I'd ignored them because I thought I knew better. I opened the junk drawer next to the sink, found a roll of Scotch tape, and stuck the page to the fridge. Gabriel called from outside. "Dad, come on." I left the binder on the counter and went to meet him. I didn't even get our bags unpacked before I saw them. Wet footprints, small ones, leading from the bathroom all the way across the narrow hall to the back door. I stood there holding my duffel in one hand and stared at them. They weren't huge puddles or anything. Just the kind of damp outline you'd leave if you stepped somewhere wet and then walked across linoleum. But they were clear enough. Definitely foot-shaped. Definitely recent because the edges hadn't dried yet. I dropped the duffel. Gabriel. He was in his bedroom. I heard him moving around, probably checking out the view or poking through the dresser drawers. "Yeah? Come here a sec." He appeared in the doorway, wearing his hoodie still zipped up. His sneakers were on, that was good. I looked down at them. Wet. Not soaked. Just damp around the rubber edge where the sole met the canvas. "Did you go outside?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. That told me everything. "Gabriel, I just went to look at the lake," he said. His voice got quieter. You said we could. I said we'd go together in a few minutes. I kept my tone level. Didn't yell. I was trying not to yell. Did you go in the water? No. Your shoes are wet. I didn't go in, he said. I just went to the dock. I wanted to see if the water was cold. I closed my eyes for a second, took a breath. So you put your feet in? Just my toes. I kept my shoes on the dock. The dock we haven't even looked at yet. The one I don't know is safe. His face changed. Got that defensive look he used to get when Gloria would ask him about homework he hadn't done. It's fine, he said. It's just a dock. You don't know that. I heard my voice getting louder and tried to pull it back. Didn't work great. You don't know if the boards are rotted or if there's nails sticking up or if I was careful. That's not the point. You said we could go to the lake. I said we'd go together. I was definitely louder now. I didn't say run out there by yourself the second we got here. He looked down, crossed his arms. I wanted to keep going. Wanted to tell him that I'd planned this whole weekend, that I'd saved up the money and driven us all the way out here, and the least he could do was listen when I said wait a few minutes. Wanted to say that I was trying really hard to make this good, and he was already making it difficult. Didn't say any of that. What I said was, just stay inside until I'm with you. That's the rule. Okay, he muttered. I mean it. I said okay. He went back into his room. Didn't slam the door, but closed it firmly enough that I got the message. I stood there in the hallway looking at the footprints. They were already starting to fade. Another few minutes and they'd be gone completely. I figured I'd overreacted. Probably. He was 10. He'd gone to look at the lake. That was normal. I was the one making it a big deal because I was stressed about the whole weekend going smoothly and proving to Gloria and to Alyssa and to myself that I could handle 2 days with my own kid without screwing it up. I took another breath, ran my hand through my hair. Hey, I called toward his door. Let's just go down there now, together, before it gets dark. A pause. Then the door opened. Okay, Gabriel said, still quiet, still a little sulky. But he came out. We went through the back door, the one the footprints had led to, and down 3 wooden steps to a narrow path that cut through the pines. The ground was mostly dirt and pine needles, cold but not frozen yet. The sky had that late afternoon dimness where you couldn't tell if the sun was still up or just barely gone. The path wasn't long, maybe 40 yards. It sloped down gently and came out at a small clearing where the trees stopped and the lake started. The dock stretched out maybe 20 feet. It was old. Gray wood. Couple of the boards darker than the others where they'd been replaced or patched. 2 metal cleats bolted to the sides for tying off boats. No railing. Just a flat walkway ending at a T-section wide enough to sit on. The water was dark. Flat. No wind. It reflected the sky in a way that made it hard to tell where the surface actually was. Gabriel walked onto the dock ahead of me. I followed. Our footsteps made hollow sounds on the wood, the kind of noise that carries. Is it deep? Gabriel asked. Probably. Vermilion's a deep lake. How deep? I don't know. Couple 100 feet in some spots, I think. He crouched down near the edge and peered over. I stayed a few feet back, testing my weight on the boards. They felt solid enough. A little flex, but nothing that seemed dangerous. Can you see the bottom? I asked. No, it's too dark. I was about to tell him to step back when I heard it. A knock, not loud, not sharp, just a slow, deliberate sound. Hollow, like someone tapping on wood. From underneath the dock, I froze. Gabriel's head came up. Did you hear that? Yeah. Another knock. Same rhythm, same hollow tone. Tap. Pause. Tap. What is it? Gabriel whispered. I don't know. He leaned forward, trying to angle his head to see under the dock between the planks. "Gabriel, don't." He leaned farther. Got his face right near the edge. I moved fast. Grabbed the back of his hoodie and yanked him upright, pulling him back a couple of feet. "Hey," he said. "Sit down." I was just looking. "Sit down." I didn't yell it, but I used the voice that meant now, the one I didn't use often but that he recognized. He sat, right there in the middle of the dock with his legs crossed. I crouched next to him and listened. The knocking had stopped. We stayed there for maybe a full minute. Didn't talk, just waited. Nothing. The water stayed flat, no movement, no sound except the faint creak of the dock swaying slightly under our weight. "What was it?" Gabriel asked again, quieter this time. "Could have been anything," I said. "Log bumping underneath, piece of debris, fish maybe." "Fish don't knock. Big fish, hitting the support beam or something." He didn't look convinced. Honestly, I wasn't either. "Let's head back," I said. "Can we stay a little longer?" "It's getting dark. Just a few more minutes." I almost said no. Almost told him we were leaving right now, and that was final. But he was looking at me with that expression that wasn't quite pleading but wasn't far off. And I remembered that I'd brought him out here to spend time together, not to drag him around giving orders. "Fine," I said. "But stay in the middle. Don't lean over the edge again." "Okay." We sat. The sky got darker. The temperature dropped enough that I could see my breath when I exhaled. Gabriel asked if we could go fishing tomorrow. I said maybe, if we could find poles and if the ice wasn't too thin. He asked if Grandpa Sutton used to fish here. I said not here exactly, but somewhere nearby, and that I didn't remember much about it because I was younger than Gabriel was now. That was true. I'd been maybe 7. All I really remembered was a lot of trees and my dad drinking grain belt on a dock that might have looked a lot like this one. After a while, I checked my phone. 1 bar. Flickering. I opened my messages, tried to load the thread with Gloria. The screen just spun. "Is there Wi-Fi?" Gabriel asked. "Supposed to be." "Can I play something on your phone?" "Let me check the router when we get back inside." We stayed another few minutes. The knocking didn't come back. The water stayed still. Finally, I stood up. "Come on, let's get dinner going." Gabriel got up without arguing. We walked back up the path together. Inside, the cabin felt warmer. The propane heater was doing its job. I found the Wi-Fi router on a shelf in the front room near the wood stove. It was a cheap Netgear model, old enough that the plastic had yellowed. The power light was green. The internet light was red. I unplugged it, counted to 10, plugged it back in. Same thing. Green power, red internet. "Is it working?" Gabriel called from the kitchen. "Not yet." I tried my phone again. Still 1 bar. Tried loading anything. Nothing. The listing had definitely said Wi-Fi included. I checked specifically because I figured Gabriel would want to watch something or play a game if we had downtime. I opened the Vrbo app. It took forever to load. When it finally did, I pulled up the listing and scrolled to amenities. Wireless internet. Right there in the list. I looked at the router again. Checked for an Ethernet cable. Found one plugged into the back, followed it to the wall jack. Everything looked connected. Just no service. "Dad, I'm hungry," Gabriel said. I put the phone down. "Yeah, me too." I checked the freezer. Found a Red Baron pepperoni pizza I'd bought at Super One along with the other groceries. Pulled it out and turned on the oven. While it preheated, I tried the TV. It turned on fine. Local channels only. No cable, just NBC, CBS, ABC, and a grainy PBS station. Good enough. Gabriel sat on the couch and watched some game show I didn't recognize. I leaned against the kitchen counter and stared at my phone. 1 bar. No data. The oven beeped. I put the pizza in. I kept thinking about the knocking. about the way it had sounded so deliberate, about the rule in the binder. If you hear someone call your name from the water, do not respond and return to the cabin immediately. That wasn't about knocking. That was something else. But it was in the same category of weird. I didn't like it. The pizza took 18 minutes. I cut it into slices with a dull knife I found in the drawer and brought Gabriel a plate. He ate in front of the TV. I ate standing up in the kitchen. After we finished, I made a decision. I'm going to drive into Tower, I said. See if I can get a signal. Let your mom know we got here okay. Gabriel looked up. Can I come? No, it's almost dark. Just stay here, watch TV. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I don't want to stay by myself. You'll be fine. Doors are locked. I'll leave the heat on. What if something happens? Nothing's gonna happen. I'm just driving up the road. He looked uncertain. I softened my voice a little. I need to check in with your mom, I said. She'll worry if she doesn't hear from me. I'll be fast. He nodded slowly. Okay. Stay inside. Don't answer the door for anyone. And don't go back to the dock. I won't. I mean it, Gabriel. I know. I grabbed my jacket and keys, stepped outside. The air had gotten colder, properly cold now, the kind that stings your face. I walked toward the truck and stopped. There was a light near the trees, not a flashlight, bigger, like headlights, but dimmer. I squinted. A Polaris Ranger, dark green, parked maybe 50 yards off to the west where the driveway curved toward the main road. Someone was standing next to it. I walked closer. Linda. She was wearing the same Carhartt jacket, had a flashlight in one hand, but it was pointed down at the ground. She was looking toward the lake, toward the west, where the cove was supposed to be off limits. I got within 20 feet before she noticed me. She turned, raised a hand in a wave. Evening, she called. Hey, I said. Everything okay with the cabin? Yeah, fine. Just heading into town real quick. Cell service? Yeah. She nodded. You won't get much out here. Tower's your best bet. Sometimes the Sinclair station has a decent signal. Good to know. She looked past me toward the cabin. Your boy inside? Yeah. Good. Keep him there after dark. I hesitated. The dock safe? Safe enough during the day, but not after sunset. Gates lock automatically. What gates? She gestured vaguely toward the path. Down at the shore. You didn't see them? No. They're there. They'll close in about 10 minutes. Won't open again till morning. I didn't remember seeing any gates, but it had been dim. Maybe I'd missed them. Okay, I said. Linda watched me for a second. Then she raised her hand and made a clear gesture, pointed at the cabin, pointed at the lake, shook her head firmly, then pointed at Gabriel, or where Gabriel would be inside, and made a staying motion. Palm down, firm, stay inside, stay away from the dock. I got the message. Yeah, I said. He's staying in. She nodded, lowered her hand. Drive safe, she said. Then she climbed into the Ranger and drove off toward the blue house up the road. I stood there watching her taillights disappear. Then I got in my truck and headed toward Tower. I told Linda I'd be back in 20 minutes and got in the truck. The drive to Tower took 15. Mostly gravel that turned to cracked county road about halfway through. I kept the heat low and the windows cracked because the stale air was making me drowsy. Tower showed up the way small towns do up here. Sudden, a handful of buildings clumped along the main road with everything else woods. Population sign said 800-something. I passed a shuttered motel, a bait shop with its lights off, and then the Sinclair station on the right with its green dinosaur logo lit up bright enough to see from a quarter-mile out. I pulled in next to the only other vehicle there, a Ford Ranger with a DNR sticker on the back window. The pumps were older. the kind where you prepay inside. I didn't need gas, but I went in anyway because the light looked warm and I wanted to send Gloria a message before heading back. The clerk was a woman maybe late 20s with auburn hair, pulled back in a low ponytail, and a Sinclair polo that looked a size too big. Her name tag said Julie. She glanced up from her phone when the door chimed and gave me the standard small-town once-over. Not hostile, just cataloging. "Evening," she said. "Hey." I walked past the chips and grabbed a Coke from the cooler, then spotted a rack near the counter with cheap plastic flashlights hanging on pegs. I took one down. $5. The kind that takes 2D batteries and probably dies after an hour. Good enough. Julie rang it up without comment. I pulled out my phone while she bagged it and saw 2 bars now, which felt almost generous. A text from Gloria had come through at 5:42 p.m. "Let me know when you get there." I typed back. "Just got to tower. Cabin's fine. Gabriel's good. Signal's bad up here, but we're all set. Sent." Little check mark appeared right away. "You staying out at one of the resorts?" Julie asked. Not nosy, just filling space. "Cabin on Vermilion. Place called Lakeview Rest." Her expression didn't change, but something tightened around her eyes. She nodded. "Linda's place." "Yeah, you know her." "Everyone knows Linda." She handed me the bag with the flashlight. "You up here fishing?" "Just the weekend. My son and me." Julie leaned back against the counter behind her, arms crossed casual. "You hear about the guy who went missing last week?" I hadn't. I shook my head. "Fisherman from Ely," she said. "Went out on the ice near Stunts Bay and didn't come back. They found his sled Tuesday, but no sign of him." "Ice break?" "That's what they're saying. But it's been cold enough for 3 weeks solid." She shrugged, but her face said she didn't buy it either. "Anyway, locals are saying people should stop going out at night, just until they figure out what happened." I thought about the knocking under the dock, the rule in the binder about voices. "Appreciate the heads up," I said. Julie straightened and grabbed a box cutter from under the counter, started opening a cardboard shipment of candy bars like the conversation was over. But then she paused. "Linda keeps that property pretty tight. You read the binder?" "Started it." "Yeah, follow the rules and you'll be fine." She said it flat, the way people do when they're repeating something they've been told, but don't necessarily believe. I nodded and turned toward the door, then stopped. "You got any paddles, like for a canoe?" She pointed toward the back corner past the beer cooler. "Might have one left from summer stock." I found it leaning against the wall next to a dusty fishing net and a stack of styrofoam bait containers. Wooden handle, aluminum blade, paint chipped but functional. $22, according to the sticker. I brought it up front. Julie scanned it. "Planning to go out on the water?" "Just in case." She bagged the flashlight and handed me the paddle separately. "Be careful out there." "Always am." That wasn't true, but I said it anyway. I paid cash, $30 total, and walked back out into the cold. My phone buzzed as I unlocked the truck. Gloria had replied, "Okay, have him call me tomorrow morning." I sent back a thumbs up and climbed in. The whole drive back, I kept thinking about what Julie said. Missing fishermen. Locals warning people off the ice at night. It sounded like small-town exaggeration to me. The kind of thing that gets passed around until it's bigger than it actually is. Guy probably had a few beers, wandered off, got turned around. Happens. Still, the name thing in the binder didn't fit that. I turned onto the dirt driveway at 6:18 p.m. according to the dashboard clock. The cabin lights were on, yellow through the windows. I parked next to the porch and grabbed the paddle and the Sinclair bag, then stopped. Gabriel was standing on the porch. Not sitting in one of the plastic chairs. Standing at the edge near the steps, hands shoved in his hoodie pockets, staring out toward the trees and the lake beyond. I climbed out. "Hey, You okay? He turned his head but didn't move otherwise. His face looked pale even in the dim porch light. I heard you calling me, he said. My stomach dropped. What? From the lake. You were calling my name. His voice was small, confused. I thought you were back and playing a joke or something. I walked up the steps slow, keeping my voice even. Buddy, I wasn't here. I was in town. I know, Gabriel said, but I heard you. Cold unease settled in my chest, heavy and specific. Not panic, worse. The kind of feeling you get when you realize something's wrong and you don't know how to fix it yet. I set the paddle and bag down on one of the chairs. When? Like 5 minutes ago. Maybe 10. He looked back toward the lake. It sounded like you were down by the water. You said my name twice, then you stopped. I crouched down so we were eye level. Did you go outside? No, you told me to stay in. Good, that's good. Gabriel's eyes were wide, the way they got when he was trying not to cry. Why would someone do that? I didn't have an answer that wouldn't scare him more. I remembered the binder, the instruction that felt insane when I first read it. If you hear someone call your name from the water, do not respond and return to the cabin immediately and report incident to property manager. Come on, I said. Let's go inside. I took him to the bathroom like the binder said. It was tiny, just a toilet and a corner shower with a mildewed curtain and a pedestal sink. There was a vent fan in the ceiling, the old loud kind. I flipped the switch and it roared to life, rattling and wheezing. Gabriel sat on the closed toilet lid and I leaned against the sink. The noise filled the space, made it impossible to hear anything else. We stayed there for maybe 10 minutes. Gabriel didn't say anything and neither did I. Eventually his breathing evened out and his shoulders dropped and he stopped looking toward the door like something might come through it. You good? I asked finally. He nodded. It wasn't me out there, you know that, right? Yeah. I didn't push it. I turned off the fan and we went back to the front room. Gabriel sat on the couch and pulled his knees up, wrapping his arms around them. I stood in the kitchen doorway watching him and trying to think. We couldn't stay here. Not tonight. Not with him this rattled. You hungry? I asked. He shook his head. When's the last time you ate? The pizza. That was over an hour ago. I made a decision. Get your jacket, I said. We're going out for dinner. Gabriel looked up. Where? Fortune Bay, the casino resort. It's got a restaurant. Probably a buffet or something. We'll get food, hang out somewhere with people for a bit. He didn't argue. Just got up and grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door. I picked a crowded place on purpose. Easier to supervise Gabriel when there were other people around, when everything felt normal and lit up and safe. I didn't want to sit in the cabin with him staring at the windows wondering what was outside. The drive took 25 minutes, back through Tower and then east on County Road 77. Fortune Bay showed up big and modern, all glass and lights, completely out of place against the dark trees surrounding it. The parking lot was half full, mostly trucks and SUVs with Minnesota plates. Inside it smelled like cigarette smoke and fried food and the kind of air conditioning that runs year-round. We walked past the casino floor with its rows of slot machines blinking and chiming, past a couple blackjack tables and found the restaurant near the back. It wasn't a buffet, but it was close. Family-style menu, big portions, everything fried or smothered in gravy. The hostess sat us in a booth near the window overlooking the lot. Gabriel ordered chicken strips and fries. I got a burger and coffee. We didn't talk much while we waited. Gabriel picked at his napkin, folding and unfolding it into smaller and smaller squares. The food came and we ate. Gabriel finished about half his chicken strips and most of the fries. I worked through the burger without tasting much of it. Around us, families talked and laughed. A couple guys at the bar watched hockey on the mounted TV, and everything felt aggressively normal. Safe. We stayed almost an hour. I let Gabriel order a Coke refill and a slice of pie he barely touched. I wasn't in a hurry to get back. Finally, I paid and we walked out into the cold. The parking lot lights made everything look washed out and flat. Gabriel climbed into the truck without a word and buckled up. I started the engine and let it warm for a minute before pulling out. The drive back was quiet. Gabriel stared out the window at the dark trees sliding past. I kept the radio off. About halfway to the cabin, he spoke up. "The rules mention a red boathouse," he said. I glanced over. "Yeah? Ours is green." I thought about it. Probably just generic wording. Linda probably uses the same binder for multiple properties. But it says, "Do not approach red boathouse on North Point," like it's telling you about a specific one. "Could be," I said. "Or maybe she owns a few cabins on the same lake and didn't bother rewriting it." Gabriel didn't respond. He went back to looking out the window. I wanted to believe what I'd just said. It made sense. Easier than thinking Linda had written those rules specifically for our cabin, for our dock, for whatever was out there in the water. We got back around 8:45 p.m. I parked and we went inside. The cabin felt colder than I'd left it. I checked the thermostat, still set to 68, and nudged it up to 70, even though Linda said not to. Gabriel brushed his teeth and went to his room without me having to tell him. I heard the bed springs creak as he climbed in. "Leave the door open," I called. "Okay." I stood in the kitchen for a while, looking at the black 3-ring binder still sitting on the counter where I'd left it. The fisherman Julie mentioned, the voice calling Gabriel's name, the knocking under the dock. I opened the binder, flipped past the laminated first page with the rules, past the page about propane and the breaker panel and checkout procedures. Found a section near the back labeled Property History and Maintenance Records in the same bold font. The first page in that section was a photo, printed on regular paper and slipped into a sheet protector. Black and white, or maybe just faded color. It showed the dock from an angle, probably taken from near the cabin. You could see the T-section at the end, the water beyond, and off to the right in the background. A red boathouse, small peaked roof sitting on pilings maybe 100 yards north along the shoreline. I stared at it. The photo was old. Had to be. The quality was grainy, the kind you get from film cameras or early digital. But it was definitely our dock. Same configuration, same clearing behind it. And the boathouse was red. I looked up toward the window over the sink, like I could see through the dark to where the boathouse would be now. Green, not red. I'd seen it earlier when we walked to the dock. Faded green paint, half collapsed, posted with a no trespassing sign. Linda had repainted it, or someone had, but the rules still said red, which meant the rules weren't generic. They were written specifically for this property, this cabin, this exact stretch of shoreline. I closed the binder and set it back on the counter. My hands were shaking a little. I didn't know why that bothered me so much. So the rules were specific. So what? Didn't change anything. Except it did. It meant Linda knew. Whatever was happening out there, voices, knocking, missing fishermen, she knew about it. Knew enough to write instructions. Knew enough to tell renters exactly what to do if they heard their name called from the water. I turned off the kitchen light and walked to Gabriel's room. He was curled on his side facing the wall, blanket pulled up to his chin. His breathing was even. Asleep, or close to it. I left his door open and went to my own room, sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. Tomorrow we'd leave early. I'd tell Linda something came up, family, emergency, whatever. Get Gabriel back to Duluth by afternoon and forget this whole weekend. That was the plan. I lay back on the bed fully clothed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the propane heater click and hum, and didn't sleep for a long time. The knock came around 8:30. I was standing at the kitchen sink rinsing Gabriel's plate when I heard it. 3 sharp raps on the front door. Not hard, not soft. just business." I dried my hands on my jeans and walked to the door. Through the small square window, I could see Linda standing on the porch, under the yellow bulb, hands in her jacket pockets. I opened the door halfway. "Evening," she said. "Hey, wanted to check in, make sure everything's working all right." I stepped out onto the porch and pulled the door mostly closed behind me. Gabriel was still in his room, and I didn't want him overhearing whatever this was. "Everything's fine," I said. Linda nodded. She looked past me toward the trees. "I manage a few cabins on this point, not just yours. Gets quiet this time of year, so I make rounds." That tracked with the Polaris I'd seen earlier. "Okay," I said. She shifted her weight. "You get down to the lake yet?" "Briefly. See the West Cove? Orange buoys?" "Didn't go that far." "Good. There's a sinkhole out there. Drops off real sudden. County hasn't posted it proper yet, but it's dangerous." She pulled one hand out of her pocket and gestured vaguely toward the water. "Sound carries weird over sinkholes, too. Echoes, funny. People hear things and think it's voices." I didn't say anything. "Just want folks to know," she continued, "so they don't get spooked and call me at midnight thinking someone's drowning." I figured she was covering, explaining away the name rule without admitting what it actually meant. "Got it," I said. She looked at the door behind me. "Your boy settle in okay?" "He's fine." "He go in the lake at all?" The question came too smooth, too careful. I felt my jaw tighten. "No." "You're sure?" "Yeah." "Why?" Linda's expression didn't change. "Just asking. Water's cold enough to shock a kid if they're not expecting it. Had a renter last month whose daughter went in up to her knees and got hypothermia. Parents didn't even notice till she started shaking." I didn't believe her. The story felt rehearsed. "Gabriel didn't go in," I said again. She nodded slowly. "All right, good." There was a pause. She glanced toward the side of the cabin where the router was mounted inside. "Your Wi-Fi working?" "No." "Huh. Let me take a look. Sometimes the box freezes up in cold weather." I didn't particularly want her inside, but refusing would have been weird. I opened the door and she followed me in. Gabriel's door was still closed. Linda walked straight to the router on the shelf near the wood stove and unplugged it, same as I'd done earlier. "This model's garbage," she said. "I keep telling the owner to upgrade, but he's cheap." She waited 10 seconds, plugged it back in. The lights blinked green, then the internet light turned solid. "There," she said. "Should hold for a bit." I checked my phone. 2 bars. A text from Gloria loaded immediately, time-stamped half an hour ago. "Everything okay?" "Thanks," I said. Linda walked back toward the door, then stopped and turned. "You need anything? I'm up the road. Blue house, half mile." "I know." "Right. You got the binder." She looked at me for a second longer than felt normal. Then she left. I stood there with the door open, watching her walk to the Polaris. She climbed in and drove off without headlights, just running lights cutting through the trees. I closed the door and locked it. The Wi-Fi held for maybe 20 minutes. I sat on the couch with my phone, scrolling fast while I had signal. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Just something. I typed Lake Vermilion accidents into Google. The results loaded slow, but they loaded. First hit was a KBJR news article from 2 weeks ago. Headline: "Authorities warn of thin ice conditions after sled found abandoned." I clicked it. The article was short. A fisherman from Ely had gone out on Stunts Bay and didn't come back. His sled was recovered, but the man wasn't. Officials attributed it to ice breaking unexpectedly. The article ended with a quote from a St. Louis County deputy named Mercado. "We are discouraging late fishing until conditions stabilize." I scrolled down. The next result was older, from last spring. Body recovered from Lake Vermilion after week-long search. A kayaker had gone missing near Pike Bay. They found him a week later. no clear cause. Another from 3 years ago. Swimmer disappears. During evening swim near tower. I kept scrolling. There were more, not a ton, but enough that it felt like a pattern. All of them evening or night. All of them near the shore. My signal dropped. The page froze mid-scroll and the bars on my phone went to 0. I tried refreshing. Nothing. I set the phone down and rubbed my face. Gabriel's door opened. He stood in the hallway in his t-shirt and sweatpants, hair sticking up on one side. "Can I watch TV?" he asked. "Yeah. Come on." He sat on the couch next to me and I turned on the same game show from earlier. I wasn't really watching. I kept thinking about the articles, about Julie's comment at the Sinclair, about Linda asking if Gabriel had been in the water. I didn't know what it added up to, but it wasn't nothing. Gabriel fell asleep on the couch around 10. I carried him to his room and laid him on top of the quilt, pulled his sneakers off and covered him with the extra blanket from the closet. He didn't wake up. I left his door cracked and went back to the front room. The wood stove was cold and I didn't feel like starting a fire. I turned the thermostat up to 72. I sat on the couch for a while with the TV on mute watching some late-night rerun I didn't recognize. My phone stayed dead, no signal. Outside the window, everything was black. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, Gabriel was shaking my shoulder. "Dad." I sat up fast. "What? What's wrong?" I had a bad dream. He was standing next to the couch in his t-shirt, arms wrapped around himself. His face looked pale even in the dim light from the TV. "Okay," I said. "You're okay. Can I sleep in here?" I thought about saying no, telling him to go back to his room, that he was safe, that it was just a dream. But I didn't. "Yeah. Take the other bed." There were 2 double beds, one in each back bedroom. I meant for him to take mine and I'd stay on the couch. "Can I sleep in the same room as you?" he asked. His voice was quiet, small. "Sure," I said. I got up and we walked back to my room. I pulled the quilt down and Gabriel climbed in on the far side, close to the wall. I got in on the near side, still wearing my jeans and hoodie. "You good?" I asked. "Yeah." I left the lamp on the nightstand on, low light, but enough to see. Gabriel rolled onto his side, facing the wall. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling. The propane heater kicked on with a low hum. I didn't think I'd be able to sleep, but I did. I woke to a sound, wet, dragging, like something heavy being pulled across wood. I opened my eyes. The room was dim, just the nightstand lamp throwing weak yellow light. Gabriel was still asleep next to me, facing the wall, breathing steady. I checked my phone on the nightstand. 2:14 a.m. The sound came again, outside, near the lake. I sat up slow and quiet, trying not to shake the mattress. I got out of bed and walked to the window. The glass was cold. I could see my breath against it. The dock light was on. I'd turned it off before we went inside, I was sure of it. There was a switch by the back door and I'd flipped it when we came in from the lake earlier. Now it was on. A single bare bulb mounted on a post at the T-section, throwing white light across the water. I pressed my face closer to the glass. Under the surface, near the dock, something glowed. Not bright, just a faint greenish light like a glow stick 20 feet down. It moved slow along the dock line, drifting from the far end toward the shore. I felt my stomach drop. Then I heard it. My voice, calling from outside. "Gabriel." Not loud, just clear, calm. Exactly the way I'd say his name if I was standing in the yard looking for him. "Gabriel, come here." It was perfect. Every inflection, every tone. I stood frozen at the window, staring at the dock light and the faint glow underneath, listening to my own voice call my son's name from the dark. Gabriel shifted in his sleep. Just a little movement at first, his shoulders turning. I was still at the window watching that greenish light drift under the dock when I heard the sheets rustle behind me. My voice came again from outside. "Gabriel, come here." Same exact tone I'd used earlier when I called him to dinner. Not off by even a fraction. Perfect. Gabriel made a sound in his throat, small and sleepy. I turned from the window and crossed the room in 2 steps. He was still mostly asleep, face half buried in the pillow, but his mouth was starting to open, starting to form a word. I clamped my hand over his mouth before any sound came out. Not hard, just firm enough to keep it closed. My other hand went to his shoulder to hold him still in case he startled awake and thrashed. He made a confused noise against my palm but didn't fight. His eyes stayed shut. Outside, the voice called again. Gabriel. Closer this time, maybe halfway up the path from the dock. I kept my hand in place and leaned down so my mouth was near Gabriel's ear. I whispered as quiet as I could manage. "It's okay. Don't answer. Don't say anything." His breathing picked up under my hand, faster but still steady. He wasn't fully awake yet. The voice stopped. I waited, counted to 30 in my head with my hand still covering Gabriel's mouth and my other hand on his shoulder. The propane heater hummed in the corner. Outside, nothing. No footsteps. No more voice. Then the dock light snapped off. Not a flicker or a fade, just instant dark. I could see it through the window behind me reflected in the glass. 1 second yellow glow, next second nothing. I stayed frozen for another 10 count, then slowly lifted my hand from Gabriel's face. He didn't move. His breathing evened out again, and within maybe 20 seconds he was back under, fully asleep. He wouldn't remember this in the morning. Probably wouldn't even know I'd touched him. I stayed standing next to the bed for a while, maybe 5 minutes. My legs felt shaky and I didn't trust them to walk me back across the room without making noise. Eventually I sat down on the edge of the mattress, still wearing my jeans and hoodie, and stared at the wall. I left the nightstand lamp on. I didn't sleep again after that. Just lay there on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling until the window started going gray around 6:30. Gabriel woke up around 7. Stretched and yawned and asked what was for breakfast. No mention of bad dreams or voices. I told him we'd figure it out in a minute. I went to the kitchen and filled the coffee maker with tap water that smelled faintly of iron. While it brewed, I stood at the sink looking out the back window toward the lake. The dock looked normal, empty. No lights. The water was flat and dark. I poured coffee into a chipped mug I found in the cabinet and told Gabriel to stay inside while I checked something. He was on the couch watching Saturday morning cartoons on the grainy PBS channel. I pulled on my boots without lacing them and stepped out the back door. The air was cold enough to sting, maybe 20 degrees. My breath came out in clouds. The steps were wooden, 3 of them leading down to the path. On the middle step sat a soaked mesh tackle bag, navy blue, the kind with a drawstring top and reinforced handles. Water had pooled under it and frozen in a thin sheet across the step. I crouched down and looked at it without touching it. The mesh was old and frayed in spots. I could see through the gaps. Inside was fish guts, not just dumped in there, arranged. They were laid out in a neat spiral. Intestines and other soft parts I didn't have names for, all coiled around each other in a pattern that somebody took time to make. The colors were dark red and grayish pink. Everything was fresh enough that it hadn't frozen yet. I stood up fast and took 2 steps back. My stomach turned over. Not from the smell, which hadn't hit me yet because of the cold. From the deliberateness of it. Somebody did that on purpose. Took the time to arrange it just so and leave it on the step where I'd find it first thing. The back door opened behind me and Gabriel stepped out in his socks. "I said stay inside," I told him. "What is it?" He was already looking past me at the bag. I moved to block his view, but he'd seen enough. His face went pale and his mouth opened. Then he gagged, not loud, just a sharp intake of breath and a choking sound. His hand went to his mouth and he turned away, shoulders hunching. "Go back in," I said. He didn't move. "Gabriel, go." He went. The door slammed behind him and I heard him run to the bathroom, the sound of the fan turning on, then retching. I looked back at the tackle bag sitting on the step, water still dripping from the mesh onto the frozen puddle. I wasn't putting that in the cabin trash. I found a black garbage bag under the kitchen sink and pulled on the work gloves I kept in my truck. Gabriel was still in the bathroom with the door shut and the fan running. I went back outside, picked up the tackle bag by the handles without looking too close at what was inside, and dropped the whole thing into the garbage bag, tied it off twice. The smell hit me on the second knot, sharp and rotten and wet. I walked it to the truck and put it in the bed, then went back inside. Gabriel was sitting on the couch with his knees pulled up and his arms wrapped around them. His face was still pale. He'd been crying. I could see the tracks on his cheeks. "We're going for a drive," I said. "Where?" "Tower. I need to get rid of that and make a call." He didn't argue, just got up and put his sneakers on. The drive took 20 minutes. Gabriel didn't say anything and I didn't turn on the radio. Tower had a landfill about 2 miles past the Sinclair station. I'd seen the sign on the way in yesterday. It was open Saturdays from 8 to noon. I pulled up to the gate at 8:15. A guy in an orange vest waved me through and pointed to the dumpsters on the left. I backed the truck up, pulled the garbage bag from the bed, and threw it into the closest bin. It landed with a wet thud. Gabriel stayed in the truck with the windows up. I got back in and drove another quarter-mile down the road until my phone showed 2 bars, pulled over onto the shoulder near a stand of pines. "Stay here," I told Gabriel. He nodded. I got out and dialed 911. A woman answered on the second ring. Calm voice. Asked me the nature of my emergency. I told her I was renting a cabin on Lake Vermilion and somebody left something on my steps, something that felt like a threat. I didn't go into detail about the guts or the arrangement, just said I needed to talk to someone. She asked for my location. I gave her the address from the Varbo listing and told her I was staying at Lakeview Rest off County Road 77. She said she'd connect me to the St. Louis County Sheriff's Office and put me on hold. The hold music was generic and too loud. I turned the volume down and watched Gabriel through the windshield. He was staring straight ahead with his hands in his lap. A man's voice came on the line, deep and controlled. "This is Deputy Mercado. You called about an incident at a rental property." "Yeah," I said. "Lakeview Rest on Vermilion." There was a pause, just a beat, long enough that I noticed it. "What happened?" Mercado asked. I told him. "Found something on the steps this morning. Looked like fish guts arranged in a bag. My kid saw it and got scared. I drove it to the landfill but wanted to report it in case it's part of something bigger." "You're staying with Linda Skinner's place," he said. Not a question. "Yeah." Another pause. "Keep away from the water," Mercado said, "and keep your son inside as much as possible. We'll look into it." "You coming out?" "We'll look into it," he repeated. I waited for more, but he didn't offer anything. Then he asked, almost too casually, "Did you see anything else? Any lights near the water? Maybe under the surface?" I froze. My hand tightened on the phone. I thought about the greenish glow drifting under the dock, the way it moved slow and deliberate along the pilings. "Why?" I asked. "Just routine follow-up," Mercado said. "Sometimes people report unusual reflections or equipment lights from fishing boats. Helps us narrow down activity patterns." That was bullshit, and we both knew it. I didn't answer right away. Mercado's voice shifted, still controlled but harder. "Forget I asked. Just keep your kid inside and away from the shoreline. We'll be in touch." Then he hung up. I stood there on the shoulder with the phone still pressed to my ear and the dial tone buzzing. He knew. Law enforcement already knew something was happening at that lake. They were tracking it, asking questions about lights under the water, warning people to stay inside. And they weren't sending anyone out. I waited by the truck for another 10 minutes in case a patrol car showed up on the road. Just stood there watching the empty pavement and the pines and the gray sky. Nothing came. Gabriel knocked on the window and asked if we could go. I got back in the truck and drove us toward the cabin. My hands were shaking on the wheel and I kept them tight to hide it. I stood on the shoulder for maybe 10 seconds after Mercado hung up. The dial tone buzzed in my ear. I lowered the phone and got back in the truck. Gabriel was still buckled in, looking at me with those wide green eyes. "We going back?" he said. I nodded, started the engine, pulled back onto the county road. The drive back took 22 minutes. Gabriel watched out the window the whole way. I kept both hands on the wheel and didn't turn the radio on. When we pulled into the driveway at Lakeview Rest, Linda's Polaris was parked near the cabin. She stood on the porch with a red metal toolbox at her feet. I cut the engine. Gabriel didn't move. "Stay in the truck," I said. He didn't argue. I got out and walked to the porch. Linda watched me come. She wore the same Carhartt jacket and those Sorel boots, hands in her pockets. "Morning," she said. I stopped at the bottom step. "What are you doing here?" "Storm knocked some branches down last night. Figured I'd check the roof." She nodded at the toolbox. "Make sure nothing's loose." I hadn't heard any storm. Hadn't heard wind or rain or branches falling. I'd been awake most of the night. "Didn't hear a storm," I said. Linda shrugged. "Came through around 4. Quick one. You probably slept through it." I looked at the roof. Looked fine. No branches on it. No debris anywhere in the clearing that I could see. "Roof looks okay," I said. "Good." Linda picked up the toolbox. "Also wanted to mention, there's a rental fishing boat on the lift down by the dock. Owner's supposed to pick it up Monday, but I could tow it off today if you want clearer access to the water." I stared at her. There wasn't a boat on any lift. I'd been to the dock 3 times now. No boat. No lift. "There's no boat," I said. Linda tilted her head. "Green aluminum 14-footer. On the lift just north of the dock. You didn't see it?" "No." "Huh." She set the toolbox down again. "Well, it's there. Been meaning to move it. Figured I'd do you a favor, get it out of your way." A favor. That's what she called it. Gabriel opened the truck door and climbed out. He walked over and stood next to me, hands in his hoodie pockets. Linda smiled at him. "Morning, Gabriel." He didn't answer, just looked at her. "How'd you sleep?" she said. "Fine," Gabriel said, flat voice. Linda's smile stayed put, but her eyes shifted to me. "You folks settling in okay?" "We're fine," I said. "Good, good." She picked up the toolbox again. "Well, if you want that boat moved, just holler. I'll be around most of the day." She walked past us toward the Polaris. Got in, started it up, drove off down the driveway without looking back. Gabriel and I stood there watching until the Polaris disappeared around the bend. "There's no boat," Gabriel said. "I know." "Why'd she say there was?" "I don't know." We went inside. I locked the door behind us. Gabriel sat on the couch and pulled his knees up again. I went to the kitchen and poured another cup of coffee from the pot I'd made earlier. It was lukewarm and bitter. I almost called Mercado back. Almost. But what would I say? Linda lied about a boat. She offered to help and it felt wrong. That wasn't enough. Not for a deputy who'd already brushed me off once. I looked out the back window at the dock. Still empty. still normal. Gabriel spoke from the couch. "Dad." I turned. He was pointing at the fridge, at the laminated rules page I'd pulled from the binder yesterday and stuck there with a magnet shaped like Minnesota. "The West Cove," he said, "and the Red Boathouse." I walked over, read the rules again, the part about the West Cove being off limits, the part about not approaching the Red Boathouse on the North Point. "She keeps trying to get us near the water," Gabriel said. His voice was quiet, scared but steady. "First she asked if I went in. Then she said there's a boat we should look at." He was right. I knew he was right. But leaving now, packing up, driving away, going back to Duluth 12 hours early, that would mean I couldn't handle a weekend. That would mean Alyssa was right to worry. That would mean Gloria would get that look, the flat one, the one that said she'd known all along I'd mess it up. "We'll be careful," I said. "We'll stay inside. We'll leave tomorrow morning like we planned." Gabriel looked at me, didn't say anything. "It's one more night," I said. "We'll be fine." He didn't look convinced, but he nodded. I should have listened to him, should have packed right then. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "You want to walk down to the dock? Just to the end. In the daylight. Together." Gabriel frowned. "Why?" "Because I want to see something." "What?" "I don't know yet." He thought about it. Then he got up and put his sneakers on. We went out the back door and down the path. The air was cold and still. No wind, no sound except our boots on the frozen dirt. The dock looked the same as yesterday. Gray wood. Some replaced boards. T-section at the end. I'd brought the paddle from the Sinclair, the cheap wooden-handled one with the aluminum blade. I carried it in my right hand. Felt better having it. Didn't know why. Wasn't planning to use it. But it felt like both a tool and a weapon, and that seemed right. We walked onto the dock, footsteps hollow. Gabriel stayed close. At the end, I stopped and looked down into the water. It was clearer than yesterday. Sunlight hit it at a better angle. I could see maybe 10 feet down, 15 in some spots, and I saw the pilings, old ones, underwater, running in a line from the north side of the dock toward the west, where the cove was. They were spaced maybe 8 feet apart, rotted at the tops, covered in algae or moss or something dark and stringy. A path, an old dock path, leading toward the off-limits cove. I followed the line with my eyes as far as I could see. Maybe 40 yards out, the pilings disappeared into deeper water. And closer, maybe 20 yards north along the line, I saw the footprint, a rectangle on the bottom, darker than the surrounding sand, stones or concrete blocks arranged in a square. The edges were too clean to be natural. A foundation, a building footprint. I thought about the photo in the binder, the red boathouse in the background, sitting on pilings, 100 yards north along the shore. But the boathouse I'd seen yesterday was green, half collapsed, with a no trespassing sign. This footprint was directly in line with where the red one had been in the photo. "What are you looking at?" Gabriel said. "Pilings," I said. "Old dock supports." He leaned forward and looked, saw them, didn't say anything. "I want to leave," he said after a minute. "Yeah. Can we go now?" I looked at him. His face was pale again. His hands were shaking a little. "Yeah," I said. "We can go." We walked back to the cabin. I felt better once we were inside with the door locked. "Go pack your stuff," I said. Gabriel went to his room. I heard him unzipping his backpack. I should have started packing too. Should have grabbed my duffel and thrown everything in and carried it all to the truck. But I didn't. I stood in the kitchen and poured another cup of coffee and told myself I needed 10 minutes. Just 10. To think. To make sure I wasn't overreacting. Because leaving early meant calling Gloria, meant explaining why. meant admitting I'd gotten spooked at a rental cabin and couldn't finish the weekend. And that felt like failure. So I waited, drank the coffee, looked out the window. Gabriel came out with his backpack on. "Ready?" "Okay," I said. "Let me grab my stuff." I went to my room and threw my clothes into the duffel. Took maybe 3 minutes. When I came back out, Gabriel was standing by the front door with his jacket zipped. "Let's go," I said. We walked to the truck. I opened the passenger door and Gabriel climbed in. I tossed the bags in the back seat, got in the driver's side, put the key in the ignition, turned it. Click. Just one. Then nothing. I tried again. Click. Nothing. I sat there, hand still on the key. Gabriel looked at me. "What's wrong?" he said. "Battery's dead." "How?" "I don't know." I popped the hood and got out. Gabriel followed. I lifted the hood and propped it. The engine looked fine, nothing obviously wrong. Then I saw the cable. The negative battery cable, pulled free from the terminal, lying across the engine block. I picked it up. The connection end was clean. No corrosion. No reason for it to come loose on its own. And on the rubber casing, about 6 inches from the end, were fingerprints. Wet fingerprints. I looked closer. The prints were long. Too long. The index finger impression stretched maybe 4 inches down the cable. The thumbprint on the opposite side was the same. I felt my stomach drop. I reconnected the cable, tightened the bolt with my fingers as much as I could, went back to the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine started, rough at first, then smooth. Gabriel got back in. I backed the truck around and headed down the driveway. The gravel crunched under the tires, trees on both sides, 50 yards to the main road. Then I saw the Polaris, parked sideways across the driveway, blocking the exit. Linda stood next to it, hands in her jacket pockets, waiting. I stopped the truck 20 feet away, put it in park, left it running. "Stay here," I said to Gabriel. I got out and walked toward her. "Problem?" Linda said. "Need to get by," I said. "Heading out early?" "Yeah." She nodded, didn't move. "Shame. You paid through tomorrow." "That's fine." "Where you headed?" "Home." "Long drive." I didn't answer. Linda looked past me at the truck, at Gabriel in the passenger seat. "You know," she said, "if you're worried about the road conditions, I could guide you out the back way. There's a public landing on the far side of the point. Take a boat across, maybe 15 minutes, and you're at the county lot. Paved road from there." A boat across the water, to the far side. I thought about the rules, about the West Cove, about the pilings and the footprint and the voices calling from the lake. "No thanks," I said. "Just need you to move." Linda's expression didn't change. "Road's rough this time of year. Lot of washouts past the bend, easier by water." "I'll take the road. Suit yourself." But she didn't move, didn't get in the Polaris. I walked back to the truck, got in, put it in reverse and started backing up to turn around. The driveway was narrow, trees close on both sides. I had maybe a 3-point turn to make it. I cut the wheel hard, started forward. The tires slipped. I felt it immediately, the back end sliding right. Too much, too fast. I hit the brakes, but the truck kept going. Slid off the gravel into the shallow ditch and stopped at an angle with the rear passenger tire sunk 6 inches into frozen mud. I tried to reverse. The tire spun, didn't catch. Gabriel grabbed my arm. His fingers dug in hard. I looked at him. His face was white. Through the windshield, I could see Linda still standing by the Polaris. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't surprised either. We were stuck. Gabriel couldn't stop breathing too fast. His chest kept hitching, shoulders tight, eyes darting between the truck hood and the path to the lake. He kept saying he could hear it. The knocking. Same sound from yesterday under the dock, but now from here, 50 yards up the driveway with the hood propped open and the battery cable lying across the engine block. I told him it was probably ice shifting or a log. He shook his head and said no, it was the same rhythm, tap, pause, tap, from the water. I didn't hear it. Maybe he was right. Maybe his ears were sharper. Maybe panic made him hypersensitive to every sound. Didn't matter. What mattered was the cable didn't pull itself free, and we weren't getting out by waiting. I made a decision. I told Gabriel to go inside. He asked what I was doing, and I said, fixing this. He started to ask how, and I cut him off. I needed him to go to the bathroom, lock the door, turn the fan on, and stay there no matter what he heard. He stared at me with those wide green eyes and asked what I was going to do. I told him not to worry about it. Just stay inside. Don't come out until I come get him. He looked at the path to the lake, then back at me, then nodded. We walked to the cabin together. I waited on the porch until I heard the bathroom door lock and the ceiling fan kick on with that loud rattle. Then I went to the truck bed. The generator sat where I'd tossed it earlier. Red Honda, 2,000-watt portable, decent condition, maybe 10 years old. I'd grabbed it from the cabin storage shed behind the wood stove when I was looking for tools. Hadn't planned to use it. Now I was. I pulled it out, set it on the gravel, then grabbed the orange extension cord coiled next to it. 50 feet, 12 gauge, heavy enough. I also took the paddle I'd bought at the Sinclair. Wooden handle, aluminum blade, chipped paint, $22. Felt like the best money I'd spent all weekend. I carried everything down the path. The air was still. No wind, no birds, no sound except my boots on frozen dirt and the generator banging against my leg with every step. The trees felt too close on both sides. The lake opened up ahead, flat and dark, and I kept walking. I don't know why I went to the dock instead of staying at the truck. Part of it was practical. I needed room to work, space to move, and the driveway was too cramped with the hood up and Gabriel 15 feet away behind a thin bathroom door. Part of it was something else. The lake felt more predictable than Linda. Whatever was in the water followed rules. It called names, it knocked, it left things on steps. It wanted you close. Linda was different. She lied about storms and boats and sinkholes. She disconnected my battery. She managed multiple cabins and made rounds and checked on people who got too curious. The thing in the water was a threat. Linda was a system. I reached the clearing and stepped onto the dock. The boards creaked under my weight. I set the generator down near the T-section at the end, dropped the coiled extension cord next to it, kept the paddle in my left hand. Then I looked down into the water. It was brighter. Not daylight bright. The sky was still overcast and gray, but the water near the pilings had a glow to it. Faint greenish light, same as I'd seen at 2:14 this morning drifting under the dock. It was deeper now, maybe 30 feet down, moving slowly along the old piling line that ran toward the West Cove. I crouched and opened the generator's fuel cap, 3/4 full. Good enough. I pulled my pocket knife from my pocket, old Leatherman I'd carried since I was 25, same one I used for wire stripping at work when the proper tool wasn't in the truck. I unfolded the blade, then picked up the extension cord and sliced through the plastic jacket 6 inches from the female end. The copper strands inside were clean. I peeled back the insulation on both the hot and neutral wires, left about 2 inches of bare copper on each. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought they'd shake. I looked at the ladder. It was bolted to the dock's edge near the T-section, old galvanized steel with 4 rungs disappearing into the water. I didn't know how deep it went. Didn't matter. Metal conducted. Water conducted. That was enough. I wrapped the bare hot wire around the top rung twice, twisted it tight. Did the same with the neutral wire on the second rung. The connection wasn't perfect, but it'd hold. I plugged the male end of the extension cord into the generator's outlet, then stood and looked at the water again. The glow was closer, maybe 20 feet down now, still drifting. I heard my name. Stevie. Not my voice this time. Gabriel's. It came from the water, south side of the dock near the old pilings. Quiet and small, exactly how Gabriel sounded when he was scared and trying not to show it. The same tone he'd used last night when he woke me up to say he'd had a bad dream. I kept my eyes down, didn't look toward the voice, didn't answer. Dad. Closer now, near the ladder. I pulled the generator's choke out halfway and gripped the starter cord. My chest felt tight, but my hands still weren't shaking. I kept my eyes on the generator, not the water. Dad, I'm scared. I pulled the cord. The engine turned over once and died. Stevie, help. I reset the choke, pulled again. The engine caught this time, sputtered, then settled into a rough idle, loud enough to cover the voice. I pushed the choke back in and the idle smoothed out. Something slammed the underside of the dock. The whole structure shuddered. I staggered half a step, caught myself, tightened my grip on the paddle. The impact came again, harder this time, directly under the T-section where I was standing. One of the boards cracked with a sharp snap and I saw it bow upward an inch before settling. The glow surged up from below, bright now, close. I flipped the generator's breaker to on. The current went through the extension cord, into the ladder, into the water. I didn't see a spark. What I saw was bubbles, hundreds of them boiling up around the ladder, frothing white against the dark water, spreading out in a circle 6 feet wide. Then I saw the shape. It rolled up from below the dock, pale and slick, about the size of a person, but wrong. The proportions were off. Arms too long, fingers webbed, skin that looked gray-green and translucent in the churning water. It grabbed the ladder with both hands and tried to pull itself up. The current locked it in place. Its whole body went rigid, back arching, mouth opening in a shape I didn't want to see clearly. It didn't make a sound. Maybe it couldn't. Maybe the current stopped that too. I stepped forward and swung the paddle down hard. The aluminum blade caught it across the shoulders and I felt the impact shudder up through the wooden handle into my arms. I pulled back and swung again, this time hitting the side of its head. It spasmed, hands still locked on the ladder, legs kicking uselessly in the boiling water. I pinned it, planted the paddle blade against its chest and leaned my weight into it, pushing down while the current kept it frozen against the metal. Its eyes were open, filmy and pale. No pupils I could see, but definitely eyes. It stared up at me and I stared back and kept pressing. It took maybe 30 seconds before it went limp. The hands released the ladder first, fingers uncurling slowly, then the arms drifted down. The legs stopped kicking. The whole body sagged and started to float, rising toward the surface as the glow around it faded to nothing. I pulled the paddle back and stepped away from the edge. The thing floated face up. I got a better look now. Humanoid. Definitely humanoid. But the skin was too smooth, no hair, and the face was flat with a wide mouth and those filmy eyes still open, staring at nothing. The hands had 5 fingers each, but they were webbed halfway up, membranes stretched between them like a frog's. I didn't touch it. I left the generator running and watched as the current kept pushing the body away from the ladder. It drifted south, slow and lazy, caught the movement of water flowing toward the old piling line. After maybe 2 minutes, it snagged on one of the rotted pilings 40 yards out and stopped, bobbing gently. I counted to 60. Then I flipped the breaker off, unplugged the extension cord, and killed the generator. The silence after the engine died felt huge. I grabbed the generator, cord, and paddle and ran back up the path. At the cabin, I pounded on the bathroom door and told Gabriel it was me. It was okay. We were leaving. I heard the lock click and he opened the door, face pale, eyes red. I told him to get his bag and get in the truck. He asked what happened, and I said I fixed it. That was all. I threw the generator in the truck bed, reconnected the battery cable in 40 seconds, slammed the hood. Gabriel was already in the passenger seat with his backpack on his lap. I got in, turned the key. The engine started immediately. I put it in reverse and backed up fast, gravel spitting under the tires. The wheels spun when I shifted to drive, and I gave it too much gas, fishtailed slightly, corrected. I didn't care. I just wanted distance. Halfway down the driveway, I saw the Polaris. Linda stood next to it, 50 yards ahead where the drive curved toward the county road. She wasn't moving, just standing there with her hands in her jacket pockets, watching us approach. I didn't slow down. As we passed, I caught her face in the side mirror. Rigid, angry, not surprised, not confused. Angry, like I'd broken something that wasn't mine to break. I kept driving. The public landing was 20 minutes south near Tower. I didn't stop until we got there. Gabriel didn't ask questions. He sat with his backpack clutched against his chest and stared out the windshield the whole way. At the landing, I parked near the boat ramp and pulled out my phone. 2 bars. I opened the camera, scrolled back to the photo I'd taken from the dock before I ran. Pale body snagged on the pilings, face up, arms floating wide, and sent it to the number Mercado had called from. Then I dialed 911 again. The same woman answered. I told her I was the guy who called yesterday about the fish guts, that I'd found something else in the water at Lakeview Rest, something she needed to send someone to look at. She asked what I found, and I said a body. She put me on hold. Mercado came on the line 30 seconds later. His voice was different, sharper. He asked where I was, and I told him the public landing. He told me to stay there. He arrived 18 minutes later in a tan county SUV with a light bar on top. He parked next to my truck, got out, walked over. Tall guy, maybe 6'1", close-cropped dark hair, pale blue eyes. He looked tired. He asked if I was okay, if Gabriel was okay. I said yes. He asked what I found, and I handed him my phone with the photo pulled up. He stared at it for a long time. Then he handed the phone back and told me to go home. I asked if he was going out there, and he said yes. I asked what it was, and he said he didn't know yet. I asked if Linda knew, and he didn't answer. He told me to go home and stay off Vermilion for a while. He'd be in touch. That was it. 2 days later, Mercado called and said the county had retrieved debris from the lake near Lakeview Rest. He didn't say body. He said debris. He also said Linda Skinner had been arrested for criminal tampering and reckless endangerment. Apparently, she'd been disconnecting batteries and slashing tires on rental vehicles to strand visitors at her cabins during what he called active search periods. I asked what that meant, and he said the county was still investigating. I asked if anyone else had been hurt, and he said he couldn't comment on an open case. I asked if the thing in the water was gone, and he paused, then said the situation was contained. I didn't believe him, but I also didn't push. He thanked me for the report and said someone would follow up if they needed additional information. Then he hung up. I sat in my apartment in Duluth with the phone in my hand and realized what Linda had been doing. She'd been feeding it. Not deliberately, maybe. Or maybe that's exactly what it was. She managed multiple cabins, made rounds, checked on renters, asked if they'd been in the water. She disabled vehicles so people couldn't leave. And when they got desperate or curious enough to go down to the dock at the wrong time, something was waiting. I'd disrupted that. I didn't know if I'd killed the only one or just slowed things down. I didn't know if Mercado believed me or thought I was crazy. I didn't know what they pulled out of the lake or what they did with it after. What I knew was I got Gabriel out. 3 weeks later, Gabriel stopped waking up in the middle of the night. He still didn't talk about the cabin. He didn't ask about the knocking or the voice or what I did at the dock. When Gloria asked how the weekend went, I told her fine. We fished a little, stayed warm, came home early because Gabriel got homesick. She didn't believe me, but she didn't argue. Gabriel refused future cabins. Flat out refused. When I suggested a different lake for spring, he shook his head and said no. When I asked why, he said he just didn't want to. I didn't push. He also stopped going near open water. Pools were fine. The community center, the YMCA, those were okay. But lakes, rivers, anything with a shore and depth he couldn't see, he stayed back. I didn't blame him. I went back to work. School maintenance, 3 middle schools and 1 high school. Same rotation. Fixed a boiler at Lincoln, replaced ceiling tiles at Piedmont, cleared a clogged drain at Ordine. Normal stuff, predictable stuff. I kept the laminated rules page from the binder, pulled it out before we left, folded it twice, stuck it in my glove box. Later, I filed it at home in a drawer with my lease and tax papers. I don't know why. Maybe proof, maybe reminder. I also bought a generator. Bigger one this time. 3,500 watts, brand new from Fleet Farm. Costs $270. I keep it in my trunk under a moving blanket with a full tank and a fresh extension cord coiled next to it. I probably won't ever need it. But I thought I wouldn't need the paddle either, and I was wrong about that. Some warnings aren't about liability. They're about survival. And ignoring them nearly cost me my son. I don't ignore them anymore, or